Welcome to another new episode of Strange Encounters, where we continue to delve into the bizarre and unexplained world of alien and UFO encounters. In this episode, we bring you some of the most incredible and mysterious stories from around the world, shared by people who have had close encounters with extraterrestrial beings and their spacecraft. From strange sightings in the skies to eerie encounters with alien entities, these stories are sure to leave you on the edge of your seat. Our goal is to provide a platform for people to share their first-hand experiences with aliens and UFOs, the unexplained, the unknown, and the supernatural. We believe that everyone has a story to tell, and we're dedicated to bringing those stories to a wider audience. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and send your strange encounters to verystrangeencounters@gmail.com. We love to hear from our listeners, so join us on the Strange Encounters subreddit at r/verystrangeencounters and leave your comments and suggestions in the comments section below. With that taken care of, sit back, relax, and prepare to be amazed by the mysteries of the universe on this episode of Strange Encounters. My Personal Encounter by SXMHH925. My experience took place in the city of 29 Palms in California around June 15th. I was 12 years old, and I remember my family stayed up late having a barbecue with some friends of my parents. After they left for the night, my brother and I had brushed our teeth and had gotten into bed. We shared a room together. At some point in the middle of the night, I remember being awake and my head was on the edge of my bed, staring straight up towards the ceiling. We had a nightlight in our bedroom, so I was able to see everything in the room somewhat clearly. There was a black silhouette of some non-human entity standing above me, staring straight down at me. It had its right hand on my forehead, and I can still remember the feeling of its abnormally soft, smooth, warm skin touching me. Even though all my physical senses were engaged, and I was aware and conscious of what was going on, I couldn't think a single thought. It's as if this entity was controlling my mind. I was filled with this extremely pure feeling of love and safety. I just knew that everything was going to be okay as I stared at this creature completely unfazed. I remember feeling as though this entity was staring into my soul when I made eye contact with it. It's like it didn't see me as a physical being, but it looked at my soul. We had a deep metaphysical connection. Even though I couldn't remember its features, I remember it had absolutely no hair, no ears, and it was relatively short, around 4 to 5 feet tall. Randomly, I remember I started counting upwards in my head, and as soon as I counted to 3, I went unconscious. After what I believed to be maybe a few minutes, I woke up again, laying in the exact same position. Everything in the room was the same, except the entity was just gone. I sat up in my bed very fast and immediately thought, what the hell was that? And what just happened? I still think about this contact every single day since it happened. Fast forward to 4 years later, my mother and I were listening to this well-known alien abductee doing an interview on the radio. I heard the person on the radio describe the exact same experience that I've had word for word. In that moment, it immediately clicked in my head. It's like I had gotten another piece to the puzzle. My mother remembered me telling her about this story after it happened when I was 12. I remember seeing the look on my mother's face as she had also experienced that moment of realization. Another 4 years after that, I had contacted MUFON and they had referred me to a hypnotherapist about an hour from where I currently live. We had done some regression hypnotherapy to see if I could recover any memory of what had happened before that encounter, but we were unable to. Now he is able to help me relax and not obsess over this memory. It plays over and over in my head as I desperately try to make sense of it. My message to anyone else that has had a similar experience that feels as though they need closure is that the important part isn't trying to make sense of what has happened, but it's what you do with these memories that matters. By sharing our stories with the world, it can help many others, like me, not feel so alone. Strange Sighting in Seabrook, Texas, by Katie Sparrow. Hi everyone, my name is Katie. I'm 22. The other day, my mom and I saw something strange in the sky, and it's been bothering me ever since, and I just want to know if anyone else has seen something like this. I would say this was about a week ago, last weekend around the 10th or the 12th. I don't remember which day, I just remember it was the weekend. Also, I didn't post this on Reddit sooner because I figured it was just the military doing something suspicious, but now I'm doubting that. So, I live in a town called Seabrook, Texas in Houston, and about 1 to 3 p.m., my mom and I were driving down the road and we saw something strange in the distance. I'm going to try and describe it as best I can because, unfortunately, I couldn't get a video or picture at the time because I was so in shock with what I saw, and my mom couldn't, obviously, since she was driving. So, we saw one individual white plane-looking thing in the sky, and then, all of a sudden, about 20 or 30 individual white circular objects showed up above it. I'm saying white plane-looking thing here because I can't think of what else it could have been. It was pretty far away, and I couldn't fully see the exact shape of the object. All I could see was that it looked oval-shaped from where I was, and it was extremely white in color. What was very strange about this is that each of the individual circular objects was white, but as they moved around in the sky, they would change from being white to being basically invisible or transparent. And it was a gradual change, like slowly changing from white to transparent. Also, as this was happening, they were moving in a strange way, like how a school of fish move in the sea, all together and in a rhythm. It was just so strange, I've never seen anything like it. Also, this was happening fairly high up in the sky, but I don't think it was as high as you would normally see a plane in the sky. They were close enough to the ground that I could see them passing clouds and going through them. After this happened, the larger main white object that didn't turn invisible with the rest kept flying around near where we live, and I never saw the weird circular things again. If anyone saw anything similar, I would really appreciate your help on figuring this out. So far, I've heard absolutely nothing about what I saw from anyone else. Thank you for listening. We Ran from a Blue Light by Electric Seal Now. It's been 2 weeks since this sighting. I'm going to share what I saw and see if somebody can help me come up with an explanation. A friend and I took the railway up a small mountain range right behind Barcelona, Spain. It's a popular area for cycling and families just a few minutes away from the city. It was late in the afternoon, so no people were around, and it was already pretty dark. At some point, while playing around with the calisthenics bars, my friend pointed at what seemed to be an ordinary plane flying at a normal pace. "That's not a plane because it's not blinking," he said. I have no idea if all planes are supposed to blink or not, so I didn't give it much thought. Just my friend and his weird notions. But then something happened. I followed the tiny light with my eyes for a few seconds, and then it went through a small cloud, but it never went through. It seemed like it stopped right there, on purpose, hiding. That caught my interest, and for a while we both kept our eyes fixed on the cloud. When the cloud moved, the light was still there, but motionless, like a star. A couple of minutes passed until the light moved again, first at a slow pace in a straight line, but then erratic and in completely different directions. It picked up speed, and it drew weird patterns over large areas of the sky. It must have been moving hundreds of meters in just seconds, and in opposite directions. Since we were alone on the mountain, and it was at night, we kind of freaked out a bit. We started to walk our way down to the city, but always kept an eye on our moving light. At some point, it was going especially crazy. The light became brighter. I remember it being bluish, especially when, for just 2 seconds, the brightness became strong enough that we felt it was coming right towards us. When that happened, we started running away. I've been thinking about it, and I still have no idea what it might have been. No plane, no drone, no magic lantern. I can't think of anything that matches the artificial blue light, the incredible speeds, and the erratic behavior. Maybe some of you have some theories or clues. I can't stop thinking about it. What I Saw by Living Angel Kate. To start, I'd like to begin with my very first experience. I was around 8 years old and on a night walk in my neighborhood with my mom and siblings. We looked up at the sky at the same time and saw a green light come out of the sky and do a complete 180-degree turn. Fast forward to around 2020. As the medical shutdowns were in full force, I spent a lot of time outside. One bright sunny day, with not a cloud in sight, a silver ball reflecting the sunlight was directly above my front yard, maybe 200 meters up. My roommate ended up taking a picture because he saw it as well. We saw this same craft about 3 times over that summer and the next. Late last summer, I was outside with my siblings and a close friend around sundown. My friend and I started walking towards my back door, talking. Suddenly, right above and slightly beyond my house, we both see a smaller sized craft. I say to him, "You see that, right?" To that he replies, "Yeah, what is that? A plane?" I respond, "That is not a plane." Actually, it was weirdly geometrically shaped and had rounded edges, almost trapezoidal. It was made of some sort of reflective, iridescent glassy metal and looked otherworldly. It was gorgeous. In that moment, I decided I wanted to know more, so I ran to the front yard where it was hovering. As I turned the corner and looked up again, it turned into a silver ball and went towards the moon. Later, my friend was hesitant to talk about it, calling it Michelin Man plane. I've had a plethora of other strange events happen, but I want to know if this one sounds familiar to anyone. Up UFO Experience by Jason 5000. So, about 15 years ago, when I was a 12 or 13-year-old kid, I had a friend over to my house, and it was a very normal night, about 2 a.m. on a weekend. We had not taken any drugs before this happened. We were staying up playing video games in the old guest room and decided to both take a break. We passed by a window in the room and both stopped walking to see what was outside the window after seeing a bright flash outside. What we saw outside the window I can only describe as a disc-shaped structure emitting bright lights of every color, or maybe it was all colors at once. The light was shining toward the window of the house. The object was stationary and on flat ground about 10 to 15 feet outside the window and in the backyard of my one-story home. It was about the size of an SUV and silent. Its lights were brighter and more colorful than anything else I've ever seen. So bright that I remember having difficulty making out the shape of the object behind all the blinding colorful lights. But I came to the realization that it was indeed some sort of flattish disc-shaped structure. My best friend was standing beside me, witnessing the same thing. We both just stood there frozen, like deer in the headlights. I cannot describe the amount of fear and awe I felt standing there. It was like we were both in shock, yet we just kept staring at it outside the window, completely unable to move for what seemed like half a minute. Afterwards, we both turned and looked at each other at the same time, made eye contact briefly, and then faced back outside the window at the object. Neither of us could say a word. Then, we both abruptly turned toward the exit door of that room at the same time, and we didn't say a word to each other until we were out of that room and out of sight of that window. We both saw the same thing. Immediately after this, I went in the backyard to the location where we spotted this thing, which made my friend extremely upset, but it was gone. Nothing was there. It was the oddest experience I can ever remember. I don't know what we saw that night, but it was very up close and personal. If I had seen this alone, I would have easily chalked it up to some sort of hallucination, but I can't. This happened with my childhood friend who still remembers the incident, so I can't deny it. I've never seen anything similar since then, and I will go to the grave wondering just what I saw that night. Experience with Lost Time by YagGirl204. My boyfriend and I lost hours, but it felt like days, and I have no idea what happened. I still lose sleep over this, and I have no explanation. My boyfriend and I were renting a trailer in British Columbia during the time when the pandemic had just hit, back in May of 2020. We would always cruise around and go check out and explore cool places, but one place we liked to go look at the stars were these pits, like gravel pits. Well, this night, when we went to those pits, we noticed some large lights up in the mountains, and it looked like they were moving closer and closer towards us. I was scared, and I could tell and even feel that he was scared too. We both had a feeling like we're not alone. We shared those feelings with each other, and we got out of there so fast. It honestly felt like we were being chased, but there was nothing behind us. Yet it still felt as if something was right there behind us. We got out onto the highway off the gravel road to head back to our camper, and that's the last thing we both remember before waking up in bed the next morning. When I woke up, I had no shirt on, and I had my PJ bottoms on. He was in his boxers, and if that couldn't get weirder, I had gotten my time of the month when I'm certain I wasn't supposed to get it. So, after we woke up, we went over the night, and we both have no recollection of pulling into our driveway, getting out of the car, going onto the deck, into the trailer, nor do we remember being inside and then getting ready to go to bed. It's so strange. One minute we were on the highway, and the next we're both waking up in bed with no memory of what happened. It literally felt like I had been gone for days. It also didn't feel like I had slept for days. It felt better than that, like I had gone somewhere for a night on vacation, but the night lasted for weeks, and then woke up in my bed the next morning type of feeling. That is the best way I could describe the lost time feeling. It was a bit stressful when I was dealing with that feeling in the moment. I was confused, he was confused. We were both getting the days before that mixed up with the night. I know for a fact that something weird had happened to us. It doesn't end there. The next day or so, later at nighttime, a green laser light came pointing at us through our window while we were sleeping. Like the kind of laser lights that are used with guns. It scared both of us, and we pretended we were sleeping and tried our best to stay still and ignore it. My boyfriend said that it was just our neighbor at the time messing with us. But why did this happen the night after this weird phenomenon where we had lost time? I think that coincidences like that don't just happen. Moving on to about 2 days after, I'm hanging up laundry in the back while my boyfriend is in the front on the deck. The clothesline is in the back of the trailer facing a highway. This guy on a fast motorbike, dressed in a very nice modern, all-black motorist clothes, was speeding past. He slowed down and looked me dead in the eyes. Even though they had an all-black helmet on, they looked right at me like that's what they had driven by to do. I noticed right away and yelled for my boyfriend, and the guy drove off really fast. It would not have been possible to know to look where I was standing if you were to be going down that highway that fast. It's like the guy on the bike knew that something weird had happened somehow. Also, the same with whoever was checking us through the window. Anyway, we ended up moving from there not too long after, and I found out I was pregnant about 2 or 3 months after. We had been trying for about 2 years to get pregnant and had not been successful. I always wondered, what if I was abducted? What if they helped my reproductive system? What if? Who knows, right? Anyway, my daughter just turned 1 in April of 2022. I figured this platform gives me a voice to to just put my story out there. I would appreciate any replies or comments on my story. Psychologist's Experiences at 6 years old by Alex Infinitum. I am a 36-year-old psychologist with Asperger's syndrome. I have had a very successful academic career, and I now work at what's considered the #1 bank as an associate. I know that the brain can sometimes be tricky, extremely tricky. Hallucinations, sleep paralysis, narrations and stories that the mind picks through the day and then transforms into dreamlike images. Despite having this knowledge, I remember a set of extremely vivid and distinct experiences I had when I was between 6 and 7 years old. It always started the same way. Being in bed, I was suddenly woken up because I was going through a silverish tube at extremely ridiculous speeds. At the end of the tube, small humanoids received me with a feeling of peace and trust. I was extremely scared the first time it happened, absolutely terrified. Specifically, the first time I was flying through the tube and then saw them. But the following times I was almost expecting this to happen. It's like my mind surrendered and said, okay, it's that time again. The first time I encountered them, they talked to me, but I can only remember the feeling that I had, how I was progressively calmed. I went from sheer terror and wanting to run away, but for some reason actually not doing it, to a calm, unengaged compliance. They were all standing in front of me in a semicircle. The room was rectangular with very high ceilings, all in white and silver. They showed so much respect and trust, but sometimes when they moved a little, I got suddenly scared like a cat when it sees movement in an unknown human being. They rapidly calmed me down. The second time, I met them 3 times, 3 nights in a row. As soon as I arrived, they gathered around me again and mentioned that they needed to test something. I surrendered to their will with a feeling that it must be done. They did not smile, but it felt like they were smiling compassionately. I don't know how to convey this. They never touched me. I am extremely sensitive to touch because of how my autism affects my nervous system. As soon as I said okay, they all moved into another room that was part of this big rectangular room with a very high ceiling. This room that they moved into had some technological apparatus that they were manipulating. One of the humanoids was taller and was supervising this test, just standing behind with much more seriousness than the other beings. This tall entity did not have patience for me. That is what I felt. The test itself was a test of fear. How do I react to a clear menace? They did not tell me this in any way. This is what I gathered as an adult. This is the part where it gets weird, if it's not weird enough by now. The room expanded like a huge hangar. All the entities were inside the room looking through a glass. All the walls of this room were like glass. I could see them behind it, like they were cheering for me. Again, I felt this emotion from them. I was a little scared the first time. Very suddenly, a huge ape, the size of a 2-story house, appeared before me, making extremely menacing sounds and wanting to charge me. My fear was immense, and it increased when the ape actually started charging towards me. When it reached me, the ape calmed down and sat beside me. I was still feeling fear. The ape suddenly disappeared. The humanoids came out of the room very quickly and calmed me. Then they saluted me and sent me back through the silver tube, directly to my bed. The third time, I actually wanted to meet them. I was very calm through the whole process, the tube, and the meeting. They wanted to test my fear reaction again. It was the same situation, but this time I was absolutely fearless. It was really strange. I felt like I could feel the whole universe in my body. I could feel the ape and empathize with it. A huge love for everything overcame my perspective. The ape was raging, but I was absolutely calm and had never been so calmed and peaceful in my life, like I could face anything. like I was everything at the same time. I remember moving my head very slowly and relaxed to the humanoids and somehow understand their feelings. They were surprised, and the tall humanoid was intrigued and a little confused. I walked toward the ape and calmed it. Then, despite not knowing what these entities were, I walked toward them to calm them too. I just wanted everybody to feel peace, the same peace I was feeling. The humanoids came out of their room, and I felt a huge connection to them that was very candid and warm. In my mind, suddenly nothing existed, but everything existed at the same time. So being scared and not being scared was the same exact thing, like they didn't exist. I don't know how to convey this feeling. They greeted and congratulated me, but were still surprised and nervous. I remember very clearly this nervous feeling from them. It was so strange, like inadequacy of being close to me. On this instant, right before I left, they told me something, again with emotion, not with words, but it was a language that I remember as the following: remember love, on darkest days, save. I said to them that I needed to get back and went through the tube like it was nobody's business. I told my mother and my brother of this experience, and they did not believe me. I have not told this story to anybody else until this point of my life. That is what I lived on those 3 nights. I will never forget how real and vivid it was. The emotions, the images, the strange communication with the entities. The reason I decided to study psychology is to find this peace I could feel on those experiences. In this next segment, we're diving into some of the most classic and well-known cases of encounters with the strange, including sightings of unidentified flying objects, alien abductions, ghost stories, cryptid encounters, and other unexplained phenomena. So, sit back and prepare to be taken on a journey through some of the most captivating and mysterious stories of the strange and unknown. In this episode, we take a look at the Shag Harbour UFO Incident of 1967. The Shag Harbour UFO Incident was an alleged UFO sighting that occurred on October 4th, 1967, in Shag Harbour, a small fishing village in Nova Scotia, Canada. It is considered one of the most well-documented cases of a UFO sighting in Canadian history. At approximately 11:20 p.m., local residents witnessed a large, brightly lit object fall into the waters of Shag Harbour. Witnesses described the object as being about 60 feet in diameter, with 4 bright lights on its underside. The object reportedly made a hissing sound as it entered the water and was accompanied by a bright flash. Immediately after the sighting, local fishermen and residents contacted the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to report what they had seen. The RCMP and local fire department launched a search and rescue mission, believing that an airplane had crashed into the waters. After several hours of searching, no wreckage or survivors were found. The Canadian Coast Guard was also alerted and joined the search efforts the following day, but no trace of the object or its occupants were ever found. The incident gained international attention, and many theories were put forward to explain what had occurred. Some believed that the object was a downed Soviet submarine, while others thought it was a crashed American experimental aircraft. However, in the years following the incident, eyewitness accounts and official reports suggested that the object was, in fact, a UFO. Several witnesses reported seeing the object move through the water before disappearing from sight. Others reported seeing military personnel and unmarked vehicles in the area shortly after the incident. In 1993, the Canadian government released its official report on the incident, stating that the object was indeed a UFO. The report concluded that the object was not of terrestrial origin and that no conventional explanation could account for what had occurred. The Shag Harbour UFO Incident remains one of the most well-documented and mysterious UFO sightings in Canadian history. Despite numerous investigations and official reports, the true nature of the object and its occupants remain a mystery to this day. Thanks for watching another episode of Strange Encounters. We hope you enjoyed hearing about the mysterious and unexplained stories that we shared today. If you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you'll never miss out on any of our future episodes, and you'll help us continue to bring you more intriguing stories and encounters. We love to hear from our viewers, so send your own experiences with the unknown to our email at verystrangeencounters@gmail.com. You can also join us on Reddit at r/verystrangeencounters. We look forward to adding your story to one of our videos. If you would like to support the channel, join our Patreon page or go to Buy Me a Coffee, both of which are linked in the video description and in the pinned comment below. Thank you again for tuning into Strange Encounters. We appreciate the support of everyone who listens to the channel. Thank you very much.